comes to mind when you think of tradition?
This Coptic Orthodox Church.
Tradition is, I don't know, can you give me a minute?
To me, tradition is like this old standard that makes no sense, that everybody has to follow for some reason. Whenever you ask somebody why I have to follow this tradition, it's always like because that's the way it's always been done. But when you try to find like a logical reason why you're supposed to follow this specific tradition, there's never really an answer. And I mean, I do understand that traditions have to be kept because that's what gives a culture its meaning and its distinction. But in the meanwhile, sometimes in terms of doing things more efficiently and more practically, keeping a tradition is not very practical.
Tradition is like the core of the Coptic Orthodox Church. It is like beliefs and spiritual things that have been passed down through generations from our forefathers and the leaders of our church. Amen.
Tradition to me is liturgy, tasbihah, church, fasting, certain doctrines that we follow, dogma, love our tradition, love our church, wouldn't trade it for the world.
What does tradition mean to you?
Egyptian food.
Tradition is the Coptic and Coptic Orthodox. It's our ways, our customs that make us closer to God. It's our ways, our customs that make us closer to our family and our way of life.
Tradition is a loaded word, I think. It can mean anything from, I think, symbolism, stuff that we do in the liturgy, why we go around 6 times like Jericho on the altar with the deacons and the priests, or why the bosom of the Father in the back only sees the church and the people through Christ slain on the altar. Or it could mean something as interesting as an uncle telling you you can't clean the chalice with the red towel, it has to be the white towel, or vice versa, I don't really remember.
Tradition is eating rotten fish from Emma David's hand the Monday after Easter.
Tradition to me is David asking me to be in every video that he makes for all of the Coptic events. And I always give him a really hard time about it.
I think it's something that has its origins in this, has been taught to us, and I feel it's something that is sweet to the taste once you understand it. And I wish I knew more of it.
Tradition to me is a few things, but I think the most important is, I know not a lot of people might think of it this way, but it's humility. It's understanding that I don't know the truth and you don't know the truth, and I don't know what to do and you don't know what to do. And a lot of people don't like that, especially in this age, but it's to understand that what has been passed down from Christ to me now is what I'm supposed to be doing. And for me to veer off from what has been handed down is pride. And I think it takes humility to acknowledge that we're supposed to follow what the fathers have said. And even we take the example of Pope Shenouda, he would not change a letter of what was handed down to us. So I think in that same spirit, that's what tradition is, and it's guidance by the Holy Spirit throughout the ages to our church now.
Tradition to me is living the teachings of Christ that he passed to the disciples, and then to the apostles, and then to the church fathers, and then to us.
Tradition to me is living the life of the old fathers. No, I don't know, just don't go.
Tradition is where the Bible comes from. Tradition is where my prayers come from, my understanding of prayer. Tradition is where my understanding of the Bible comes from. Tradition is where I learned God from. Everything in my relationship with God comes from tradition.
Tradition of the Coptic Church is like a deep freezer. We put all our beliefs and all our principles, and it got kept for centuries since St. Mark, and it does not change. We value it a lot.
What is tradition to you?
What's tradition? I don't know, like
Tradition? Oh, tradition is me bringing Nahma and Buftek in my car so that kids come out after the Eid Mass. Because you know, it's so long, five hours, especially when Emma David's doing it. So, yeah, the kids come over to my car, I give them some Buftek, kofta, and that's tradition for us.
Well, tradition for me, in many ways, is a way that God reaches out to me. He reaches out to me through the Old Testament. He reaches out to me through the New Testament, through the first century, through all of the fathers that led up, and the mothers who led up to where we are now. So tradition for me is Christianity.